And a mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion, and do according to his will. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken, and shall be divided toward the four winds of heaven, and not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled. For his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for others beside those. And the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes. And he shall be strong above him, and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion.
In the previous video, Gabriel speaks of 4 kings that will arise after Cyrus's death. The fourth, Xerxes I, the richest of them all, was duped by his cousin, and exiled Grecians, to fight against Greece. Xerxes's 5 million man army was defeated in the battle at Plataea on August 27, 479 BC. In verses 3 and 4, Gabriel skips several successive Medo-Persian kings in the Achaemenid tree and transitions to Greece. The mighty king of verse 3 is Alexander the Great, who, the text states, ruled according to his will. Alexander became a king at age 20, and over the next 12 years, he became the most powerful ruler on earth. Verse 4, and when he shall stand up, at the zenith of Alexander's power, his kingdom was broken, divided toward the 4 winds of the earth. Alexander drunk himself to death in 323 BC, after which, his kingdom was divided amongst his 4 principal generals, Cassander, Lysimachus, Seleucus, and Ptolemy. Verse 5, the king of the south will be strong, and one of his princes would be even stronger. Throughout the remainder of the chapter, we shall see references to the king of the north and the king of the south. Recall, in verse 3, Alexander the Great's kingdom was divided to the 4 winds of heaven, that is, west, north, east and south. These directions are reckoned relative to Palestine, Daniel's place of birth. That division of the empire lying west of Palestine would thus constitute the kingdom of the west, that lying north, the kingdom of the north, and so on. The division of Alexander's empire relative to Palestine, Daniel's native land, are as follows. Cassander had Greece and the adjacent countries, which lay to the west. Lysimachus had Thrace, including Turkey and extended to Bulgaria, was north of Palestine. Seleucus had Syria and Babylon, which lay principally to the east. And Ptolemy had Egypt and the neighboring countries, which lay to the south. During the long wars and revolutions after Alexander's death, these geographical boundaries were changed frequently. Cassander, the king of the west, was very soon conquered by Lysimachus, the king of the north, and Cassander's kingdom, Greece and Macedon, was annexed to Thrace. Lysimachus was in turn conquered by Seleucus, the king of the east, and Greece, Macedon and Thrace, were annexed to Syria. West, north and east are annexed into a singular northern kingdom. Seleucus, and his descendants, the Seleucidan kings, would rule the region until Rome conquered the same. Ptolemy, the king of the south, annexed Cyprus, Phoenicia or Lebanon, Caria or Korea in Turkey, Cyrene or Libya in North Africa, and many islands and cities to Egypt. Thus, as was stated in verse 5, his kingdom was made strong. Ptolemy's descendants, the Ptolemaic dynasty, ruled the region until its incorporation into the Roman Republic. Verse 6, after some years, the king of the north and south shall attempt to join themselves, they shall attempt to make alliances through intermarriage. There were frequent wars between the kings of Egypt and Syria, especially between Ptolemy Philadelphus, the second king of Egypt, and Antiochus Theos, the third king of Syria. They agreed to make peace upon the condition that Antiochus Theos of the north divorce his wife, Laodice, neglect their 2 sons, and marry Berenice, the daughter of Ptolemy Philadelphus. Antiochus was deeply in love with his wife, Laodice. He named the ancient city of Laodicea after her. This was a difficult condition for Antiochus to agree on. Verse 6 states that she shall not retain the power of the arm. 246 BC, and so it was, Antiochus brought back his former wife, Laodice, and her children, to court again. The prophecy continues, neither shall he, Antiochus, stand, nor his arm recede. Early July 246 BC, Laodice, once restored to power, poisoned her husband, Antiochus. And neither did Antiochus's arm recede, the son he had with Berenice, succeed him. Instead, Laodice installed her eldest son, Seleucus Callinicus, to the throne and ruled jointly with him. Shortly thereafter, not content with poisoning her husband, Laodice had Berenice killed, and as the verse says, and they that brought her. Laodice killed Berenice's son, her maids, attendants, and a great number of Egyptians that attempted to defend Berenice. But such wickedness would not go unpunished. Revenge is captured in verses 7 to 9. Verse 7 begins by stating that out of a branch of her roots shall one stand up in his estate, which shall come with an army and shall prevail. This branch with Berenice was her brother, Ptolemy Evergetes. Ptolemy Evergetes succeeded his father, Ptolemy Philadelphus, in the kingdom of Egypt, in early July 246 BC, within days of his sister's murder. And in the Third Syrian War, late July 246 BC, Ptolemy Evergetes raised a huge army, invaded Syria, which was ruled by Seleucus Callinicus and his mother, Laodice, and defeated it. He also conquered Cilicia, modern southern Turkey, and almost all of Asia. Verse 8 states that he shall seize their gods, and carry their silver and gold to Egypt. When Ptolemy Evergetes heard that there was strife in Egypt, took 40,000 talents of silver and precious vessels, and 2,500 images of the gods and returned to Egypt. Thus, Ptolemy killed Laodice, avenging the death of his sister, Berenice, and her son. And as verse 7 states, he also continued more years than the king of the north, for Seleucus Callinicus while in exile, fell from his horse and died. Ptolemy Evergetes survived him for 4 or 5 years. Verse 10, his, Seleucus Callinicus, sons shall be stirred up, and will assemble a great army, and one shall certainly come, and overflow, and pass through. The sons of Seleucus Callinicus were Seleucus Syraunus and Antiochus Magnus. Circa 223 BC, Seleucus Syraunus defeated his cousin, Attalus I, and captured Pergamum. He was subsequently assassinated by his younger brother, Antiochus Magnus. After Pharaoh Ptolemy Evergetes' death, Antiochus Magnus recovered Syria. Verse 11, and the king of the south shall be moved with choler, and shall come forth and fight with him. The king of the north shall amass a great army, but he shall fail. 221 BC, Ptolemy Philopator succeeded his father, Evergetes, in Egypt, the kingdom of the south. He was moved with choler indeed, angry at the losses that Egypt suffered in its battles with Antiochus Magnus of the north. Circa spring 217 BC, in southern Palestine, the king of the north, Antiochus Magnus, amassed a large army to fight against Egypt. Polybius the Greek historian states that the army consisted of 62,000 footmen, 6,000 horsemen and 102 elephants. The king of the south, Pharaoh Ptolemy Philopator, won decisively. He killed 10,000 footmen, 3,000 horsemen and took over 4,000 prisoners. Verse 12 states that afterwards, his heart shall be lifted up, and though he shall cast down many thousands, he shall not be strengthened by it. Ptolemy lacked the prudence to make good use of his victory. If he had followed through, he would have conquered all of Antiochus's kingdom. Having conquered his enemies, he was forgetful of his great name and spent his last days womanizing, partying and loose living. Verses 13 and 14, the king of the north shall return after certain years with a great army and much riches. Many shall stand up against the king of the south, including the robbers of thy people, the robbers of the Jews. The peace between Ptolemy Philopator of the south and Antiochus of the north lasted 14 years. Ptolemy's hard living got the better of him. He died in 204 BC. He was 40 years old. His 4-year-old son, Ptolemy Epiphanes, succeeded him. Syrian Prime Minister, Agathocles, who managed the empire's affairs, made an attempt to depose the boy Pharaoh, but he was assassinated by the Alexandrians. Subsequently, Antiochus also surmised that the opportunity was too good to miss. In an effort to conquer the boy Pharaoh, Antiochus amassed an even larger army than the one he gathered to fight against the Ptolemy Philopator, the child's father. The verse continues to say that the robbers of the Jews exalt themselves to establish the vision, but they shall fail. Antiochus, the king of the north, met resistance from not only Egypt but also the robbers, Bane in Hebrew, the breakers, of the Jews. The 4-year-old Pharaoh has a new ally, and we will explore this in the next video.